call it Greene's Farm, and we grow a lot of fruits and vegetables and cut flowers for selling at the local farm markets. My parents had a commercial greenhouse on this property for about 40 years, and they started with the half-acre farther down. They bought in '62, and then they bought this property here, the 1 acre that we own, in '67, and then a 2-acre property next door in '73. And so over the years they built up a commercial greenhouse operation. They started out growing freesias. Actually, my dad and Mom came from Holland, and at that time my dad decided that he would like to grow freesias, and he wanted to emigrate, and so he did some research and looked actually all over the world at different places to go. He checked out, well, by research, he didn't go there, but Brazil and Australia, and eventually zeroed in on the Saanich Peninsula. He recognized it as a great climate for what he wanted to do, and he saw the opportunity with the airport nearby and things like that for being able to ship his product. And so he and my mom eventually came out to the Saanich Peninsula, and that's how they started. So he started by growing freesias and got into other cut flowers, things like carnations and mums and things like that, and then gradually switched over more to potted plants, so more chrysanthemums and azaleas, ranunculus, those kinds of plants, and then also vegetable starter plants, bedding plants, poinsettias at Christmas time, all kinds of things. So we had six of us kids also had to help out, and we worked in the greenhouses as well, and we all had our little jobs to do, and it was actually a really nice life. We had a good childhood. It was a great way to grow up. So my parents built this house in '83, and they put in some of the garden, and I've been continuing to put in things. Some of it just because it's beautiful, and other things because I can use it for cut flowers. Well, behind us we have some Verbena bonariensis. It's a lovely little cut flower, but one of the things I like about it is that it actually is kind of a see-through plant. It's beautiful where it is, but then you can also see through it to what's at the back, and it's great as a cut flower. There's euphorbia that I like to use for cut flowers as well. There's a fire glow over there, and that's a crab apple that I put in memory of my mother. Got Alchemilla mollis here, lady's mantle. That's a lovely filler for bouquets. Got some phlox over here. This is an interesting plant. This is an allium. It's called summer drummer. You can see that it'll get up to be about 5 feet tall, and has these really interesting seed heads, and also you know, those flower in the summertime as well. So this is a Colereteria that my parents planted years ago, and it has beautiful little flowers, yellow flowers in the summertime, but people always ask me about it when it looks like this, actually. So these are actually old seed pods from the year before that I never cleaned off, and they still have their seeds in them, and those will grow if you plant them, and I often find little seedlings underneath. Here's a newer one, and you can see the seeds aren't quite as ripe yet. And the bees love it too when it's in bloom. We always have lots of bees just hovering around here. So this behind me is the entrance to our production garden, and we actually have it all fenced off for deer. We were hoping we wouldn't have to do that, so I had actually planted a escallonia hedge there, which gets to be about 8 feet tall, and I thought that would be enough. I know that deer don't like to jump over something that they don't know what's on the other side. So that was the thought behind it, and we weren't having deer trouble when I planted it, but soon they figured out where we were. So we put in a fence as well, along with the hedge, and then put these doors in so that we can keep them out, but be able to get in. But before we do that, I just want to point out the trees. This is a Doyenda camise pear, which is a beautiful pear. It has really flavorful, juicy fruit. And there's a conference pear over there, which is a pollinator for this. And then these are Belle de Boskoop, which my parents planted. It's a Dutch variety, and it's a really great cooking apple as well. But we actually use most of the fruit for our own homemade juice. That we can harvest about 1,500 pounds of fruit from our various apple, pear, and Asian pear trees, and then we take it to a juicer who uses a UV pasteurizer as well to just make sure that it's good and healthy. So let's go into the garden. In the springtime, I usually have a plant sale, and I grow a lot of tomatoes and, well, especially tomatoes, but also different kinds of vegetable starter plants like onions and peppers and cucumbers and different squashes, lettuces, things like that. And I have it at the end of April and in the second weekend of May as well. And it's a good way for me to supplement income as a farmer. Also, I'm already growing these plants for my own use in the production gardens, so I just plant some extras and grow those and sell them. And then I also at the same time do a lot of perennials, and I really love propagating. Actually, it's one thing that I really enjoy, so that's a perfect match for me. So in the springtime, this is full of different plants that I have for sale, and this area as well. It's all full of different kinds of plants. Now these ones are actually ones that I grew for the Flavor Trail, because I also have the farm open on the Flavor Trail weekend for people to see, and I had some things available for planting in their garden for the fall and the winter. So there's some lettuces, some onions, some Brussels sprouts and cabbage, and kale. And so that's what these are here. So this part of the garden was actually originally part of the commercial, or it was the commercial greenhouse that my parents had built, and it covered this whole area. So the concrete paths that you see were originally here when we bought the property in 2004 from my mother, and there are 4-foot beds in between each of the paths, so it's been really handy to be able to just focus on growing in the beds and not have to worry about managing paths, which can be a lot of the work that gardening is. So we have avoided the problem of weedy paths and things like that, and of course it's much drier and cleaner, and they also absorb some of the heat as well, so that keeps the beds a little warmer at the time. So these posts are actually the original structure of the greenhouse that was built here in the late 60s. And I'm really glad that we were able to keep that as a bit of a, I guess, a nostalgic piece for me. And we had to move some of them around a little bit to create this arbor. But this row at least was original from the 60s. And now I've planted roses over the top here. And it's really beautiful in May and June when it's all in bloom. The original vision when we first moved here for this garden was that it was mainly going to be a food garden for us, and also to grow cut flowers, because I really enjoy cut flowers as well. So my thought was to have a main path that was bounded on each side with hydrangeas. So that's what I planted here. Most of these are the mophead hydrangeas. There's a few Annabelle and limelight hydrangeas a little further down. And so they look really beautiful in the summertime. I'm able to use the flowers for bouquets, and I sell to local florists as well. And then gradually I started to realize that this garden was just going to produce way more than we needed for our family as well. And at that time, a friend asked me, they were trying to get the North Saanich Farm Market going, and she asked me if I would consider growing for the market. So I decided that would be a pretty good challenge to see how much we could get from what's about half an acre of land. And it never ceases to amaze me just how much we actually can produce on such a small amount of land. But we're so lucky here because we have great weather, we have good soil, we've got water and a Mediterranean climate, so it's fairly mild. So we're actually able to grow so many different kinds of fruits and vegetables here, and it's really interesting to see just how much we can grow. So once we took over the property in 2004, we removed the greenhouse and built a smaller greenhouse there, which we'll take a look at in a minute. But we also had this building here that we're using as a shed. It was actually on the property line, so we had to move it to the move it onto our property. And I actually asked my brother if he could do it, and he was able to jack it all up, put it onto 4-inch steel pipes, and we had a friend with an excavator come, and he actually pushed it about, what would be about 100 feet maybe, into its present location. So now I have a wonderful shed that I use for processing orders and storage and things like that. And here it is here. So these my father actually made probably about 30 or 40 years ago for using as dibbers for flats of soil. Basically you fill the flat with soil, you put this down and you just press it in, and it makes all these little holes, so then you can pop in your seeds, or you can pop in your little seedlings, and it just makes everything go a little faster. So this of course is for five plants in a pack, and this is for 4 plants in a pack. But my dad loved to do that kind of thing. He was always coming up with innovative new ways to do things. So this is the grape arbor. As you can see, it's been a really good year. And I don't think the birds have really found it yet. Sometimes we get hardly any of them, because the birds or the wasps, actually, they both have ravaged these in other years. I had started actually to sew mesh bags using sheer fabric from a thrift shop. I would cut them up and I'd sew them. I made about 280 bags a couple years ago, and I would actually put them around the clumps and then just close them at the top with a clothespin. I never got around to that this year, and so far so good. They haven't found it yet. So this variety here is called Black Lenora, and it's a seedless red grape, and we use them either for juice or for making raisins, and it's a great grape for both of those. And then in this area we had some Himrod and some Interlaken, which are seedless green grapes. Those are already done, so there's not many left, and I think the birds did find the rest of those, so they figured out that those are really good ones too. And then further down here we have some this is it's called Buffalo. It's a Concord grape. These are almost ready. That was a good one. And so in the next few days we'll probably start picking these as well and making some grape juice with these as well. So this is our little orchard. This was planted about 8 years ago now, I think. We've got a couple of plums here at the back, a yellow and a Burbank, which is a red. And we have this is actually an Asian pear, and it was absolutely loaded with pears, Asian pears this year. We got hundreds of pounds from it. But you actually have to, or it's best to thin the fruit, which I didn't get around to this year. So the fruit was fairly small, but just loaded on the tree. Then there's this is a Bartlett pear, and beside it is a Doyen de Camise pear again. And over here are some king apples, which we also get, hundreds of pounds from these trees as well. And further on, there's another Asian pear right here, and this is another one that was just loaded with fruit as well. And it actually was so heavy that a branch broke. So there's a lesson in there to make sure that you do thin your fruit, and that if you don't, you might lose some branches. Then here's this is a Honeycrisp apple, a beautiful eating apple, and a couple of Spartan apples over here. This is a Braeburn here, and a Granny Smith apple over here. Now these ones actually do ripen a little later, but because we make juice with them and we want to mix them with our pears, you have to kind of pick them at a certain time where they can all mix together. So we picked these a little underripe, but the others were ripe. So that's the way we needed to do it in order to get our mix for the apple juice. So here are the peach trees, and over here I have some cherry trees. Having not a lot of luck getting cherries this year. I think everybody has the same problem with birds. And I try to put nets over, and when I do, that works a lot better. So I just try to get the nets over as best I can. I'd heard that birds pick up on that even if you don't completely cover it. When they see that there's a net there, they get that it may be a problem, and so they try to avoid it. So that's the only way I have figured out. Well, actually, at another property that we had, I actually had barberry planted underneath the cherry trees, and we never had a problem with raccoons then. So it was prickly enough that I think the raccoons didn't get at the cherries. But with the net over top, then it also helped with the birds. And the peach trees, we actually had an amazing crop of peaches this year for the first year. They're about 8 years old, and every year I was kind of disappointed with them, and I thought, this year I'm going to have to get rid of you and try again, because you have to earn your keep here. And but always gave them another chance, and this year we were rewarded with just a huge crop of peaches. So there you go, hope springs eternal, I guess. I planted strawberries underneath the fruit trees, which seemed like a good idea when they were a lot smaller because they weren't so shaded. Now we don't get quite as much sun going to the strawberries, and so we don't get a whole lot of fruit from them. And so I'm not sure I would do that again, also because I can't really top dress the soil that the trees are growing in with manure or anything like that. So that's made it a bit of a problem, but we do get some strawberries from them, and we enjoy those quite a bit. The peach varieties that I've planted are, the first two are called Pacific Gold, and the farthest one is called Frost. And actually, they were recommended to me. I got them at La Coteau Farms, and they were recommended to me as ones that the guy that I talked to said were bulletproof when it comes to the diseases that peaches can have, because often you hear that you should be planting peaches against a south wall, maybe with an overhang to protect it from the peach leaf curl. And so I didn't want to do that, so I decided to try these, and have had a bit of a problem with peach leaf curl, particularly on the third tree, the Frost, was quite bad this year, and I thought, oh well, this is, you know, this poor guy, he's not going to do anything. And he lost almost all his leaves to begin with, and then grew some more back, and then we had a great crop from it, so you never know. So this is my greenhouse, and in it I grow peppers and tomatoes and basil, actually, between the tomatoes. And I grow a lot of peppers for a restaurant in Sydney, Beacon Landing. They try to buy from local growers. So he especially likes, the chef especially likes the small red peppers, so the mini apple red, mini bell red, that's what these varieties are. And then behind here is gypsy, and there's a sweet banana pepper as well down on the other end, and then just a regular bell pepper, California Wonder. So those are some of the varieties that I grow. And the tomatoes, I really sort of push for earlier tomatoes, because I find, since I grow for the market, that that's when the demand is really there, because by kind of mid-August everybody's got their own tomatoes in their garden, and then the season slows down a bit for me. So I focus more on having an earlier tomato so that I can supply that market when it's there. And the basil is it does really well in here. It grows all the way through to the end of October without a problem, and seems really happy in here. So it's a good mix. Now this greenhouse itself doesn't have great venting. Actually, it really should have some kind of venting on the side or in the ceiling. So it gets quite hot in here, and in the summertime it can get up to 40 degrees Celsius or something like that. So I put a shade cloth over it at that time, and that helps to keep the temperature down a little bit. But of course it also cuts down on some of the sunlight, so it slows down on the ripening of some of the vegetables as well. But too much heat will also slow down the growth of the vegetables too, so that's a bit of a trade-off. Yeah, so I water this, everything in this part of the garden is on an automated system, and it's all drip irrigation, so it conserves water and makes sure that the water just gets to the plants themselves rather than to all the weeds and everything around, so it helps to keep the weeding down as well. But there's drip tubes running through these pots here on the ground by the tomatoes as well, and it's on an automatic timer. So I hear it go on at about 3 in the morning if I'm awake, and I know, oh good, my garden's getting watered. That's probably one of the best things you can do actually if you want to get serious about gardening, is think about the irrigation part first. Get that all set up so that you don't have to be dragging hoses around or watering cans or things like that. So this is some of the production beds for some of the vegetables. In this bed right here we have garlic, which I just planted last week. So it's October 7th today, so usually the first couple of weeks of October is the best time to plant garlic. And I just basically broadcast some dolomite lime on the surface and some organic granular fertilizer, and dig that in a bit and then rake it all smooth, and then I just use like a broom handle and just make holes about 6 inches apart, and I've marked with a piece of tape on the broom handle 5-inch depth, and I just push it down to that mark, and then I just drop the garlic cloves in and then just rake it smooth. So it took me about probably 45 minutes to plant about over 200 garlic here. So a really fast and easy way to do it. And then I put my scarecrow here. Somebody had given me this, and I decided to try to make him into a scarecrow, which works pretty well, although I decided to hedge my bets because there's some kind of rodent or something that's coming along and trying to dig things up. So I put a net here as well, but the scarecrow too. And over here I've got more lettuces. Some of them are for the restaurant, and then just for ourselves as well, and to take to the market. I've got some peas, snow peas and snap peas, but I'm not having a lot of luck with them this year. I think that there's probably a disease here, so I might have to wait a few years and see if that can run its course in the garden and try again. And then some golden beets over there, and some spinach as well in the far bed, and some kale over here. So this will actually grow through the winter. Kale is an amazing crop for productivity. I actually have some more in another part of the garden that I planted in probably May, and I'm still picking from it. I'll probably keep picking from it until February or March, but here's a new crop coming as well. So here's the kale that I mentioned earlier. As you can see, it's robust and hardy. I have been picking probably 100 leaves a week from this one stretch here of about 32 square feet or something, so that's how productive it is. Behind I have some arugula that I grow for the restaurant again, and also the bean teepee, which is getting near the end. It's still got some though. I'll do some harvesting soon and try to get those processed somehow. And have some Danish ballhead cabbage at the back, some purple Brussels sprouts here at the front, and these are zinnias, which are kind of a mainstay for my bouquets that I also sell at the market. And they're a lovely flower for being bright and cheerful and attracting bees and butterflies. And then here's more garlic that I've planted as well, another about 300 cloves. And these two beds, I'm struggling with horsetail right now. So it's a really insidious weed. It's very hard to get rid of, and it's hard to find an organic control for it. So right now I'm just digging it up and hoping that over time it will that will do it. I also, if I don't have time to dig it up, then I just cut it off at the soil surface and hope that maybe that's going to deplete the roots so that eventually it just will give up the ghost. So as I said, I've been selling to, well, one restaurant this year, and I was doing a couple of others last year as well. And basically I just went to them with a basket full of what I produce and asked them if they were interested. And there's a lot more interest now in buying local, and people look for that in different restaurants too. So it's, yeah, I had a really great response from the the chefs, and then they would tell me what I need, and at time, sometimes I try to grow specifically, what they ask for, and that's worked out pretty well as well. And then the other place I sell is at the farm markets. I was doing the Sydney Street Market this summer as well, and then the North Saanich Farm Market. And I've been doing the North Saanich Farm Market for, I think, about 7 years. That's just, that's a lovely little market because they really cater towards making sure that it's homegrown, handmade, or otherwise locally produced. And we have a really great, loyal following of customers that come every week with their shopping bags, and they fill them full of what they need for the week. And they can find almost everything that they need there. So that's turned out really well. The Sydney Street Market is a different kind of market, and I think people mainly go there to just see their friends and maybe get an ice cream or something. And I found that produce doesn't sell as well there, but cut flowers do sell fairly well there. So I focus more on cut flowers at the Sydney Street Market and more of the vegetables at the North Saanich Farm Market. And between those, that's been able to keep me in business. Well, that's about it. Thanks very much for coming out. I always enjoy talking about my garden with other people, and I hope that you are able to find a bit of somewhere to garden for yourself in your own life. Thanks for coming.